Final Fantasy VII is a role-playing game, or more like the role-playing game, which was released back in 1997, over 20 years ago now, on the Sony PlayStation 1. And it is one of the greatest games of all time, well, in my opinion. So here are 7 reasons why Final Fantasy VII is one of the best games ever made. So first of all, it was the first proper role-playing game to be on a 32-bit system and make use of a full 3D rotational 32-bit engine. Because of this, you had an entire world to explore, and that was just like mind-blowing at the time. For example, when you first start the game and you're in Midgar, and you spend about 6 or 7 hours of gameplay there, the thing is, like, you think that the entire game is going to be based there because it's quite a big city, and then you leave the city and then you realise it's a dot on a humongous world map, and like, it's mind-blowing at the beginning because you can explore this entire thing, and that was just unprecedented at the time, and that's paved the way for a lot of other games to have full, freely explorable 3D worlds. The second reason why FF7 is one of the best games ever made is because of the storyline, or more specifically because of the emotional depth. Back in 1997, over 20 years ago now, games just weren't big enough to have that much storyline in them, to build that much emotional depth, but Final Fantasy managed it, and in this sense it was unprecedented. For example, the love triangle between Tifa, Cloud and Ares. You never knew which way he was kind of going to go. The game gives you choices and it kind of pushes you more towards kind of Ares, but it culminates in the date at the Golden Saucer, where you can either go on a date with Tifa, with Ares, or if you've shunned both of them, you go on a date with Barra, which is interesting, I suppose. And if we're going to talk about emotions, we have to talk about the pivotal moment in the game, the key emotional scene. And spoilers alert here, obviously, but naturally, if you haven't played the game, you wouldn't really be watching this video. So we all know what it is. It's that moment where Ares dies. That moment which took us all by surprise. You just don't expect a main character, let alone Ares, the love interest, to die. It was just insane. It was something which was so moving, and it was moving to such an extent, especially when you're kind of young and if you were playing the game when you were a teenager, like I did, and it just moved me to tears. And it was, I can't even describe it. Final Fantasy VII was an unprecedented game for its time, as I mentioned a few times already. It's because it was so massive. So you came from the SNES and the Mega Drive, which were 2D engines, they were 16-bit, so there's only so much you could fit on the game. Because Final Fantasy was so massive, they had this space for humongous character development. When you start the game, naturally you start off as pretty weak. But then as the game progresses, you can get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. But that's up to you how strong you get. Because you can either go out farming, you can go out and get the items, you can go out and make yourself better, or you don't have to bother and you can still complete the game. But the amount of character development was just unrivaled. It was just crazy because you can go from like really weak to going to be earth-shattering, to having spells and attacks so powerful that literally nothing can defeat you. The amount and level of side quests in this game was crazy. You can complete the entire game probably in about 50 hours, but with all the side quests you probably could play another 60. For example, Vincent and Yuffie. These are two characters you can have in your party which obviously relate to storyline quite a lot. Well, Vincent does, Yuffie not so much. But you don't even need to meet them. You don't even need to have them in your party to complete the game. And Yuffie has like her own entire town. And that level of depth of side quests is just crazy. There's so much exploration to do. There's so much to find. There's so much to learn. So much to build. Like so much character development to happen. Same with the chocobo breeding. Like, that was so much fun. Breeding chocobos, finding them, feeding them nuts, making babies, then racing them, and then breeding until you get to the gold chocobo. The gold chocobo was obviously the best. You could go anywhere, so you could get all those materials and do the ultimate side quest to fight the weapons, ruby and emerald weapons. And they were just like ridiculously hard. But to get to that level was so satisfying. And to have this level of side quest, like in such a game, was just I can't even describe it. I can't even explain it. Each Final Fantasy and each role-playing game has its own magical system, its own fighting systems, and they change throughout every Final Fantasy. But I thought the materia system was particularly innovative. I mean, maybe it's because it was the first one I played, but for me it was how much you could do with it. It was how flexible it was. And there was certain satisfaction about leveling up when you reach a certain level and then you get more and more powerful magic and powerful spells. But I think one of the best things about the materia system was the support materia. So the blue materia. So for example the All, the MP Absorb, the HP Absorb, or final attack materia. Like when you pair final attack with Phoenix. So that when you die you cast Phoenix and it damages the enemy but it also gives you all back life. Or where you start getting creative with your combinations, like if you pair an all materia with a fire, and then pair another fire with a HP absorb. There was just so much depth to it, and so many combinations you could make. We cannot talk about any Final Fantasy game without mentioning the music. So the composer, Nobuo Uematsu, is a musical world-class genius. So much so that him and Arnie Roth do concerts all over the world. So the music in Final Fantasy VII just sets the tone of the game so perfectly. Every piece matches the exact tone of what that particular scene in the game should be. For example, the natural, almost Red Indian tone of Cosmo Canyon, or the emotional, musical masterpiece that is Aeris' theme, and how it plays in the background when you fight Jenova when Aeris dies. And of course, the one piece of music we must mention without fail when talking about Final Fantasy VII. This piece was just out of this world. As a child, when I was playing it when I was like 12 or 13, this orchestral piece just blew my mind. I knew nothing about orchestra or that type of music, or how powerful it could be. But to see it, or rather hear it in a game, was just incredible. Final Fantasy VII turned an entire generation onto RPGs, and it has the single biggest following for any role-playing game, and one of the biggest followings for any game ever made. It's inspired a plethora of spin-offs, like Before Crisis, Crisis Core, The Dirge of Cerberus, The Last Order manga, the Advent Children film, and fans have been asking Square for years and years for a remake, and Square have actually said yes, which is quite unheard of. But I think Square are playing a dangerous game because they've come out and said that they're going to get rid of the turn-based combat system, which is one of the cores of the game, and they're getting rid of that to reflect current gaming trends. But they're doing the remake for the fans. If they get rid of one of the main cores of the game, I don't know how well it's going to be received, because for me, if it's not a turn-based combat system, it doesn't feel like Final Fantasy VII. So I don't know how that's going to go. But I think for the die-hard fans, for those hardcore fans, it's just not going to be the same game. I really hope Square get it right, because if they do get it right, this is literally a game I will buy the console for. Thank you so much for joining me on this trip down memory lane. Like, comment and subscribe down below, and I'll see you in the next video.